In this video, I am going to talk about parts of a complex number z. Now, when we talk about complex numbers, we often talk about two parts that are associated with that complex number. Now, the two parts that a complex number have is the real part and the imaginary part. A is known as the real part of the complex number and B is known as the imaginary part of that complex number. So any complex number can be written in the form of a plus bi. Okay. Now in a short, the real part we write re of z, that is real of z, and the imaginary part can be written as im of z. This indicates it is the imaginary part of z, right? And this indicates the real part of z. Now in some textbooks, in place of a they write x, and in place of b they write y, but the whole purpose is not undermined. It is still same as z is equal to real plus imaginary, right? And this I is known as the imaginary, right? Now in this video we are going to do some examples and we are going to identify the real and the real and the imaginary part of that complex number. So just take note that this is the general form of a complex number z, and z is known as the complex number, right? Okay, let's do an example. In example 1, we have to state the real and the imaginary part, right? So we have the complex number here, z is equal to 2 plus 3i. Now if we write the general form of that, this will be z is equal to a plus bi. Okay, now a we know that it is the real part and b it is the imaginary part. So if I have to write the real part of this, I will say real of z is equal to a, which is 2, and the imaginary part of z will be basically 3. So that is how we write the real and the imaginary part. Okay, let's do another example. Example number 2, we have z is equal to minus 3 minus 4i. So again we can write this as z is equal to a plus bi, right? Now corresponding to a we have negative 3, so that means the real of z is equal to, corresponding to a is minus 3, and the imaginary part of z is, corresponding to b is minus 4. Okay, you have to take the sign in front of the number, so this becomes the imaginary part. Okay, now sometimes students, they make mistake. What they do is, when they write the imaginary part, they write imaginary of z is equal to minus 4i, right? Now this is not the correct way of writing the imaginary part. You do not include the I here, right? When you include the I here, it is not the correct way of writing the imaginary of z, right? So do not make this mistake. Okay, let's do another example. We have z is equal to root of 3 minus I, everything divided by 2. Okay, so this one we have to first write in the form of z is equal to a plus bi. Okay, now if I simplify this, this can be written as root 3 over 2 minus I over 2. Okay, now this is in the form of z is equal to a plus bi. Over here we can clearly see that we have a plus b I. Okay, and just to make it more simple, this can be written as root 3 over 2 minus, we have a coefficient 1 here in front of I, so this can be written as 1 over 2 I. Okay, so now it is very simple to identify our real and imaginary part. So this will be the value of a, and this will be the value of b. Okay, so the real part of z will be root 3 over 2, and the imaginary part of z will be minus half. Okay, so that is how we write the two parts. Okay, let's move on to part D. Part D, we have z is equal to minus 3. Okay, so this time you can see there is only the real part, right? There is no imaginary part here, right? So let's rewrite this. This will be z is equal to minus 3, which is our real part, plus, now what is the imaginary part here? We have nothing, so that means it is 0i, right? 0i means nothing, right? Now we can write our real and the imaginary part. So the real of z is equal to this minus 3, and the imaginary part of z is basically 0, right? So this is our value of a, and this is our value of b. Okay, so that is how we write when one part is missing, right? Example part D, you have something as z is equal to minus I. So this time the real part is missing, right? You only have the imaginary part. Okay, so if I rewrite this, this will be z is equal to, the real part is 0 and the imaginary part is minus I, right? Now minus I means minus 1i, right? Just to make it more simple, this can be written as z is equal to 0 minus 1i. We normally don't write 1 like that, right? But just to identify the part, I am just writing here 1i, right? Okay, so that means the real part of this is the real of z is equal to 0, and the imaginary part of z is basically negative 1, right? So this is our value of a, and this is our value of b. Okay, so that is how we write. Okay, example number 2, this is similar to the whatever we have learned previously in the examples above. Here we have to write the complex number. I think I missed the r here. Complex number z, if the real part of z is 2 and the imaginary part of z is negative 3, right? So this time the parts are already given, so our real of z is negative 2 and the imaginary of z is minus 3, right? Now we have to write this complex number z, right? So we know a complex number will be written as z is equal to a plus b I, right? Now z will be equal to, negative 2 is basically the value of a, so negative 2, and the value of b is negative 3, so it will be minus 3 and I is there. So this is our answer. This is what we should be writing. Okay, so we have written the complex number z, and okay, this is supposed to be positive 2, right? This is not negative 2. Okay, the real part is 2, right? So we ignore that and we ignore this, right? So it is 2 minus 3i. Okay, it should be positive 2 here, right? I've written negative 2. Okay, so now it's correct. There shouldn't be negative sign here. So real part is 2, imaginary part is negative 3. So negative 2 minus 3i, right? So that is how we write. Okay, all right.